Please note that this episode includes a trigger warning. We'll be discussing ableism and some of the challenges of being a disabled parent.
Hi, I'm Sophie-Marie Odum, Lifestyle Magazine's editor.
And I, of course, am Samantha, Renke, broadcaster and disability rights campaigner, and a very big welcome to the Motability Lifestyle Pod. In this podcast, we invite our friends from the disability community into the studio for a conversation about, well, how we can all live our best lives, particularly when navigating a disabling world.
Before we get started on this episode, just a reminder that if you're listening to us in the car, you can watch the full episode on YouTube, complete with captions and British Sign Language. Also, make sure to click subscribe or follow wherever you're listening so you're the first to know when the new episode lands. In today's episode, we're interviewing mum and content creator Sophie Bradbury-Cox. She'll be discussing parenthood, the positive power of wearing colourful clothes and accessible travel.
I love her. I fangirl, absolutely. Travel, interestingly, I've been travelling somewhere recently myself. I've been jet setting, Sophie.
Oh,
I know. I went to Jersey. So I was invited for controversial Arrival magazine that I sometimes write for, Enable magazine. They invited me to do a review of a fully accessible hotel called, it's in French, I'm going to try and say it correctly, Maison de Landes. And essentially, it's just a hotel that is completely kitted out, I would say, for whatever your needs are. It was just phenomenal. I mean, I feel like I need to marry a millionaire now to, live over there and be in one of the glorious homes. But honestly, if you have ever thought about going to Jersey or never thought about going to Jersey, check it out. I'm still kind of coming down from the wow, how beautiful. I thought I was in Spain at one point.
That's amazing. It
Yeah.
was only an hour away.
Literally an hour. So I flew from Manchester. It was an hour. I'm assuming London about half an hour. But beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It did have London prices. However, the hotel we were staying at, I was half board. So to be quite honest with you, stick a croissant in your handbag and you're good to go.
As you do.
As you do.
It's a standard thing.
She's like, I won't go on holiday with Samantha.
Talking about travel,
Yeah.
I have a very exciting announcement for our first Reasons to be Cheerful.
You got me a present.
No.
We're going to LA. We're going to Vegas.
Maybe.
Oh.
Maybe it could be a tenuous link.
Yes.
But I think we might need a drum roll.
Oh, I can't do that. I don't know what to do. Brrr. No, that's a telephone. Moving on. Go on. Okay.
That will do. So, the first season of the Motability Lifestyle Pod, video equivalent, which is known as a vodcast, with
A what? A vodka?
A vodka.
Oh, vodka. Okay.
Vodcast. So instead of vodcast,
Okay.
which has BSL and captions, which we
course.
talk about all the time. It will be available on British Airways long-haul flights from June.
As in, like, when you go on your little screening.
The in-flight entertainment, yes.
We're going to be on a flight?
We are going to be on a flight.
Oh, God help you all.
We
Live
are.
in heck. Have a couple of vodkas then for that, really. I mean, I'm not going to... Can you imagine scrolling? I'm off to the Bahamas, just scrolling.
Yeah, you're gonna find it.
Honestly, that is, joking aside, that's epic news.
Yes.
Isn't that epic? Because I guess, like, disability isn't really represented when you're up in the air.
Yeah, it's true. And as far as I'm aware, it's the first airline to have an accessible vodcast online on their in-flight entertainment system. So it's a major win for us,
Yeah.
and also the community.
That's great work. Thank you so much, because it was your due diligence that got us that wonderful opportunity, wasn't it?
Yes,
it was
it
you
was.
going,
Yes.
I'm going to reach out to these.
Yes. It all came about when I went on holiday last year, which I spoke about again on season 1.
Yeah.
Travelling, 10-hour flight with kids, but it was fine. And yeah, on the plane, I just was scrolling through and I just thought, I think the Motability Lifestyle Pod would sit really nicely here, because there's nothing else for if you're a disabled traveller and you just want, even though the podcast is for everyone.
Exactly.
It has a disability angle, but there was nothing like that.
I
on
love that.
The entertainment system. I just thought it fit quite nicely here. So if you're travelling
As of when?
June.
This June?
June
2024.
2024. You can find us on the in-flight entertainment system. But if you're not travelling, you can still find our vodcast on YouTube, which is at Motability Lifestyle Magazine, with BSL and captions. But if you are flying, then please do share photos, videos on our Instagram, which is at Motability_Lifestyle_magazine. And yeah, we're happy to reshare it. We want to see all your videos, all your photos. So yes, some exciting news to kick off.
I just feel like I now need to book a holiday just for that purpose.
Moving on to our second reasons
Yes.
to be cheerful. Cool Crutches and Walking Sticks has launched the UK's first customisable kids crutches. The range is set to revolutionise the lives of millions of children living with a disability, and there's multiple designs available, such as footballs, unicorns, rainbows, glow in the dark, or anything. But they're completely customisable. So, if you've got a picture you want to have printed, it's possible.
I love that. I remember years ago when I got one of my first wheelchairs. I believe it was from WizKids. I think they fundraise, which is wonderful. WizKids do a lot for young disabled kids and young adults. And I think, that whole process of like, you got to pick your paint, you got to pick your colour. And of course, 7-year-old Samantha was like, pink! I want the Barbie pink! But just having a bit of independence and having that control, saying like, yes, it is a mobility aid, but I want it to reflect me and my personality and, because it is part of who you are.
Yeah.
I love my wheelchair. It is like my freedom and I want to express that. So I, over the years, have had all sorts of... Do you remember, what was it in cornflakes, the clicky things that you put on the spokes? That they were like Monster Munchy... No, you were the same age.
Oh, Pokemon. Is it Pokemon?
Well, they were like reflectors, but you got them in like Rice Krispies and
Oh,
stuff.
yes.
Remember?
Yeah.
My wheelchair was like covered
Yeah.
in that, and then I went through a phase with beads and all sorts. So I love this, like for crutches. That is so cool.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Super cool. So if you do want to find out more
Yes.
information, you just visit www.coolcrutches.com.
So tell me, who have we got to interview today?
We've got another Sophie.
Oh, just to confuse matters. Blooming heck.
Because that is such a great name. So yes, Sophie is a content creator. She's a fashion and lifestyle content creator, and her name on Instagram is Fashion Belle.
And it's spelled fashion and then capital BELLEE, just to, again, confuse matters even more, just in case you're wondering.
Exactly. Sophie is a UK-based fashion and lifestyle content creator and first-time mum to 4-year-old Zyra, and she shares her experience with 35,000 followers. We are so excited to discuss style, motherhood, and more. Welcome to the pod, Sophie.
Hello.
Hello. I absolutely feel outnumbered right now because I'm sat between two glamorous Sophies, but we all start with an S. So I feel like the S is powerful, strong.
I agree.
Strong names. How are you, Sophie?
Really good, thank you. Yeah, really good. Life's a bit hectic at the minute, but it's really nice to talk to you both.
I have to say, I love your Instagram page. I'm sure we can talk about that a bit later, but Instagram can be a little bit heavy. And when I scroll, your Instagram is just so bright and beautiful, and it is absolutely colour therapy. So thank you for always bringing a little bit of sunshine to my world. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I try my best.
I agree. And talking about Instagram, we recently saw on your Instagram that your daughter Zyra turned 4. Congratulations, which means that she was a lockdown baby. And that is something I can relate to because my second born was born in 2020 as well. And just reflecting on that, it was because it was my second pregnancy as well. It was so different to the first. Obviously, it being a global pandemic was one major factor, but two, like the doctor's appointments, your nurse appointments, your scans, your partners couldn't go with you. You had to go alone. Even when you was in labour, you couldn't have your partner with you until you were in active labour, which is 4 centimetres dilated.
Wow.
So that was also a very, weird and scary experience? And then when you did have the baby, your partner couldn't stay with you until, I think, could only stay for like an hour or two maybe, and then they had to go. And then when you go home, you're not sure if you want visitors.
Isn't that what they normally do though? Like, oh yeah, well done, love. Right, well done. I'm off to the pub.
Tap on the head.
Met the baby's head.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, then when you got home, you wasn't sure if you wanted visitors because, again, you're worried about, spreading the coronavirus.
Wow.
And then the baby groups, they were cancelled. It was just a really difficult experience. And I was very mindful that it was my second and that, it was very different to my first. And I felt my heart really went out to first-time mums because it was I can imagine how isolating it must have been. But yeah, what was your experience, Sophie?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way it was nice that it was my first time because I didn't know any different. So it was almost like, well, this is how it is. I've got to accept it. I've got no choice. But yeah, it was weird with she was right at the beginning of April. So it was kind of right when it was all kicking off. So we had most of my appointments were pretty normal because it hadn't really gone by then. And then when I was in hospital, actually, because I needed a carer, they allowed my husband to stay with me. So we had a room that we stayed on the labour ward and we stayed there the whole time. So they just kind of shut us in this room and then that was it. The nurses came in and out with their masks on and everything. And thankfully he could then stay with me while she was born. And then, I had a C-section anyway. And then he then stayed until we left. So I was really lucky in that sense that he could be there because, like you say, you only had that sort of 2 hours with them, which is so sad. You just don't get that experience. So yeah, in a way I was quite lucky, but it was horrible to see all the nurses with all the masks on and everything. I still wouldn't even know to this day what my midwife looked like because I never saw her face. So yeah, it was a weird experience.
I think when you have a disability, you are so used to things not being as standard. I'm not saying that wasn't a challenging time for parents, disabled parents, but I sometimes feel like we are so prepared for not the worst, that's the wrong, but just so prepared for things just going a little bit awry, that somehow we are mentally like, okay, this is a bit rubbish, but
we're prepared for change.
Absolutely. Now, I'm starting my motherhood journey. An actual motherhood journey, not another cat. Just to clarify, going to speak to my specialist, genetic testing, and just a whole heap of, can I say, headache, and already a little bit of heartbreak. But take me back to the beginning of, you deciding as any, lovely young couple, let's expand our family. Did you meet any ableism from, let's start with, the public in general, or a bit closer to home? Because I know that, I love my mum dearly, but I know that she is worried about me falling pregnant. I don't think it is necessarily that she doesn't think I can cope. I think there might be a little bit of an element of that because they don't always see how independent you can be in your own home, even your parent. But I think just on a medical point of view, oh my goodness, is this going to put Samantha in harm's way? And that's a really hard pill to swallow when you don't have the support. I want my mum to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to be a grandma. Can you share any of your own beginnings? Did you experience any of this or were people supportive on the whole?
To be fair, I think people were quite supportive. My family were definitely supportive, but I think that's because I knew quite a few people who had my condition and they'd had children. So I kind of knew that some of them had a worse type than my own. So they were in a different situation than me, but almost worse off in a way. So I thought if they can do it, hopefully because I'm just that little bit stronger, that I'd be able to cope. I can remember I'd actually got pregnant by this point. I went to see my consultant, my neurologist for my SMA. And he was like, oh, you do realise that this could change everything for you. It can affect your muscles. It can affect your breathing. It can really affect your disability. And I thought, God, I never really even checked that. I never even thought about it. It was just I'm just going to do it. I'm quite strong-willed anyway. So I was like, I can do it. I'll be fine. So then when he said that, I was like, wow, I didn't really think about that. But now I'm pregnant. It's too late. I've just got to get on with it. So, that kind of did make me think about it. And it has affected my disability in a way. It's definitely made me weaker, and it's affected my muscles in a way that I didn't really think that it would. But you know, it's never going to be a straight thing. Like most women probably are changed by pregnancy. It affects everybody. So so it wasn't too bad, really, not too bad.
And I think the issue is we're just not having those conversations. No one, you know, we don't talk about, you know, disability and parenthood, shall I say. You know, we don't see strong images of pregnant, disabled women or people with a cervix. You know what I mean? Like we don't see that, and even the doctors, as you said, you know, your doctor informed you, which is wonderful. I've had quite a few doctors be quite blunt and quite hesitant to, you know, promote or be encouraging, shall we say. I need to be very careful what I say here, but they've tried to sway me otherwise instead of saying, as you just said, you know what, this is the reality, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. You are a woman and you should be able to experience parenthood if you want to, but there is no education. There's no sex education. There's nothing out there, and I think this is why maybe, you know, our loved ones are quite scared because they've not been told, you know, and it's this like elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah, we are. It is an ableist society, isn't it? It's a society that thinks, oh, disabled people can't do that. Won't be able to do that. And you don't ever hear the positive stories or anything. And that's what you need. You need, like, you don't get a leaflet and it's like, oh, here's a disabled mum. Look, this is how she's coped. Like, you don't get that. You just have to kind of muddle through it on your own, which is crazy.
You do, and I think unfortunately a lot of the really incredible, you know, disabled parents out there who are very public about their, you know, parenthood journey. I mean, the abuse is it's just extreme. You know, it's this, you know, if you're disabled, you can't do anything, so therefore your child will suffer.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, it's so easy to get judged. I mean, so many times I'd go out with Zyra and my sister, and people would presume that she was my sister's child, and they would be like, oh, well, that's your daughter. And I was like, no, she's my daughter. And then they're like, the shock on their face was, oh, she can have a child. Like, they just don't expect it at all. And yeah, I think social media is an amazing tool in a way, because I met so many people disabled mums that I didn't know. I hadn't seen anything of them, but having them on there and then like smashing life and getting through it and doing it was so encouraging, because yeah, you don't get that. You do almost, you're expectant not to be a parent and not to do all these things. So yeah, I think it was lovely to have that like community on there, which was amazing.
And that is the beauty of social media, isn't it? That you can find that community. Is that where you'd say you went to for like helpful information and advice and what to do? You know, because the first time mum, you know, no matter what, is a challenge. It's hard. You just don't know what you're doing. There's no book that can tell you to do X, Y, Z. You sort of figure it out by yourself, but it's useful to have, you know, signposts.
Those people, yeah, that's it. And I mean, I went to my first midwife appointment in my like local GP, and she was like, I've never had anyone in a wheelchair before. I've never had a disabled person. So we're going to be learning this together. And I was like, okay, well, I know nothing about being a mum or nothing about midwifery or anything. I was like, you're supposed to be the one that knows everything. So yeah, it was a bit of okay. So then, like I say, with the social media and that, I was like, please help me, because nobody knows anything and I just need your support. So it was, yeah, they're incredible to have that community on there.
It is empowering. I think the first time that I saw someone with brittle bones, which is my condition, and the same kind of stature as me, and I think they had like 3 children, and I think just that was so powerful. Even as a child, you know, and you'll probably be the same, I didn't have disabled role models, and Dame Tanny Gray Thompson did an interview and she said she was a mother, and I must have been about 7 or 8, and I just remember glaring up at the screen going, what, people like me can have babies,
children, yeah.
And I just remember being like, oh, wow, you know, that's just so powerful.
Matters, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does.
And that's all you need, isn't it? It's just that positive representation of people.
And now you, Sophie, are probably inspiring other expectant parents as to what to expect and what to look out for. So what tips and tricks have you learnt along the way the last 4 years that you're able to share with our listeners?
I think it's just to like be yourself and not put yourself down, because I think it's so easy to compare yourself to other mums that can do everything. Like I really struggled early on because I couldn't pick Zara out the cot myself. I couldn't get her dressed. I couldn't change her nappy. I had to have carers to help me do all those things. So I was there, but I couldn't physically do it. And I think it really got me down that I couldn't do it. And then I kind of just had to learn over the years, don't punish yourself for it. Just because I'm not a conventional mum doesn't mean I'm not her mum. Like I'm still giving her that love. I'm still looking after her in all the ways that I can do. It's just not conventional. And I think that's really where I had to be like hard on myself and stop myself from putting that pressure on me and just letting it be as it is. And I mean, she's incredible. Like we get on so well and we have such an amazing relationship. So it's not affected us at all. And in reality, she's so caring and so thoughtful because I think she's had to be, and she's so independent because I can't do it all for her. So she's kind of had to do that herself. And yeah, I think it will be an incredible thing for her as she grows up to have that awareness of disability and that foresight that it shouldn't stop you doing anything. And so hopefully it'll be a good thing.
This is a subject we could talk about for hours and hours. Unfortunately, we don't. So let's talk about another wonderful subject, fashion. Because as I said at the beginning, you are definitely a fashionista, and you brighten up my Instagram feed, which is always lovely. Tell me about your own passion for fashion and how you cultivated your own Instagram page that was so bright and bold and wonderful.
Oh, thank you. No, it really, I mean, I've always loved fashion, like from when I was young. And I think it just, having social media was such a great way for me to see disabled people. Like I wanted disabled people to be seen in fashion because you never saw that when I grew up. There's no one in magazines, no one on the TV, no one on the catwalks that reflected me and who I looked like. So then kind of Instagram came about and I would just start sharing my outfits and things, and like, dressing brings me joy. And I think almost sometimes people expect disabled people to be in black, in dark colours, in blending into the background. And I was like, no, I don't want to blend into the background. I want to wear bright colours. So I thought people probably will stare anyway. So I might as well make it worth their while and wear all these bright, crazy colours. So yeah, I just think it's fun. I think it's a great way to express yourself. And yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I use fashion. I think definitely it was a strong grounding anchor when I had, difficulties growing up, and I just loved fashion to express myself. I'm very similar to you. If they're gonna stare, make them stare. But I do remember this one lady came up to me. I think I was at like a car boot, as I normally was, as growing up, and she went, "Oh, I think it's great that people like you dress nice." And I was like, "People, what? I don't understand. Do you want me to wear a bin bag?" I mean, it was a compliment because at the time, do you remember Kangol, the brand? I had a Kangol hat and I wore it back to front.
That was the fashion.
That was it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was so cool as kids. Travel's a big part of your life as well. Tell us about traveling, because I have just come back from Jersey, which has been wonderful, and it was an accessible hotel, and I've just got my confidence back in traveling with my chair and not, worrying about it going missing. But you document a lot of your travel on your Instagram as well. Where did that come about, or was it just purely your love of travel and you wanted to share that with our community?
Yeah, I think it's just another one of those things where it's a scary thing. Like I've always been scared of traveling and flying, especially like you say with wheelchairs getting lost or damaged, and I kind of just wanted to show my side of it really, and my experiences, whether good or bad, you just never know. I don't tend to fly a lot because I am still worried about planes, and we flew to America last year. We went to Disney World and thankfully everything went so smoothly. We flew with Virgin and they were fantastic, that the wheelchair was fine. There was no damage, and the relief when you get there and everything's in one piece is just amazing. But we do tend to do cruises because we get on at Southampton, you can drive down, you can get on straight on with my wheelchair, and it's just less things to have to worry about. It's just a nice experience. So we do tend to do that more often. Yeah, I love a cruise. I just love a holiday.
Yeah.
What about though traveling with kids? How is that for you? Like,
entertaining. Yes. So it's
that's putting it nicely, isn't it?
That's one word for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of snacks.
Yes.
Snacks is always a great thing to do. When we were on the plane, we had snacks, we had colouring, we had tablet. You know, you had all these things that you could do to kind of keep them entertained and distracted without causing too much havoc. But thankfully, it was okay. It all went really smoothly. So
that's another stress, isn't it? Honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh. Where are you travelling to next?
We're actually going in 2 weeks to Disneyland Paris.
Nice.
So we're going on we're driving on the ferry. So I haven't done that for years and years and years. So that'll be a really interesting experience. But I literally found out yesterday that they have a change in places toilet on the ferry. So they have 2 brand new ferries, and they've got change in place toilets on them. So like for a disabled person, that's so incredible, because I find I have to transfer with a hoist. So for them to have that option is absolutely amazing. So I definitely think travel is getting better, and there's things that are improving, but I feel like there is a long way to go when it comes to disability and travel.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice then to anyone who might be a bit hesitant and trying to take that plunge back into the world of travel? What would be your top tips, I guess?
I do a lot with my wheelchair. So especially when I'm flying, because I've got my electric wheelchair and even manual wheelchairs, I kind of tape bits up that can be taped up and protect them with bubble wrap and things like that. I think the more you can do, you shouldn't have to do it, but the more you can do to kind of protect it, do it. Absolutely. And yeah, you just got to go for it. You can't, life's too short. Things might happen, bad things might happen, but yeah, you've just got to go for it and try and experience it, because why not?
Yeah.
Here to that.
Yeah.
Where are we all going then? Where can we come with you?
Let's go.
Have you got enough room in the back of your car for us two? What do you reckon?
You can squeeze on it. We can squeeze in. It'll be fine.
I'm only a little one. Put me in a handbag. It'll be fine.
It's been so great to talk to you, Sophie. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. It's been lovely to speak to you.
Oh, thank you, Edie. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
So that was a really great chat,
That
Sophie,
was,
wasn't it?
We could have gone on for hours and hours. I feel like I need to reach out to her and be like, can I ask you this as well? No, how lovely to have her on the show. And she just brightened up my feed. She really does.
That's why I wore this blue jumper today. It was. For those who are listening and not watching, I am wearing a blue jumper, a bright blue jumper. And that was for Sophie, because I generally don't wear a lot of colour. I am trying to be more active in that decision-making process when I go shopping. But generally, I always default to black and white. Oh, Matt.
Hello.
You're not very bright today, Matt.
No, sorry, I'm letting the side down. I'm sort of greyish brown, I suppose.
You did
very fashionable.
I'm pretty...
Cash.
I don't know whether I've ever been described as fashionable.
It just looked like you brushed your hair this time, though.
Yeah, no, I've done that. I did brush my hair.
Have you not noticed? His hair looks...
It's about as much as
Very smart. I think you look very smart, Matt.
Oh, thanks, guys. What? I love this podcast.
Do you know what? I really always wanted a brother. So whenever I get a brother type figure, I just want to absolutely ridicule them in the most loving way. And unfortunately, that is you at the moment.
I'm fine with that. That's fine.
Well, you take it on the chin, don't you?
Exactly, yeah.
He cries at home a lot.
Matt, we were also talking to Sophie about parenthood, and you're a first-time father.
I am, yeah.
So do you have any tips out there for first-time dads?
My top tip would probably be actually more about yourself, in terms of just don't get too stressed about it. It's really easy to feel like you have no idea what you're doing and that you're doing everything wrong. And actually, no one knows what they're doing with their first child. And it's just, give yourself a break.
Yes.
Would be my top tip. Don't be so hard on yourself. You're doing good.
I love that advice. Thank you.
Aww. And why are you here again?
Someone's got to waffle on about cars.
Oh, yeah, that part. But it is my favourite part. Because you know what? It's Culture with Matt!
They've been much better for season 2.
I know.
Clearly
I
people
know.
are working.
Good training.
It's my favourite bit. So today I'm going to be giving some advice on long journeys in an electric car. It's one that's come up a few times. We get a lot of questions about it because more and more people are getting electric cars now, because the car manufacturers are desperate to sell people electric cars. There are good reasons for that. I won't bore you with them, but they're desperate to sell electric cars at the moment. And so there's actually some quite attractive deals on the Motability scheme at the moment in terms of low advance payments on what are quite nice electric cars. So more and more people have them. And a lot of people have been using them around town or using them as they normally would, are fine, but are coming around to a time where they've actually got to do a long journey and haven't done that before. So we get a lot of questions about, what's the best way to do this? So I was just going to give a few little hints and tips that might make that a little bit easier for people. And obviously, feel free to chime in if you've got any of your own questions. So the very first thing, and there are caveats to this because I appreciate some people, their car is dictated by a specific set of needs, and so they have whatever car they have, and they don't have an awful lot of say in that, and that's fair enough. But what I would say is if you're someone who regularly travels long distances, if you know once a month you're going to go and drive 400 miles to see your aunt and uncle in such and such county, then consider that before you choose your car. I do quite often see people who go, I have this monthly trip, or maybe a monthly trip to see a specialist.
Well, this is what we were talking about. My specialist is now over to 2 hours away.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can consider that beforehand, obviously sometimes these things are sprung on you and you don't know beforehand. But if you know that beforehand that you are going to make regular long journeys, consider that when you choose the car. There's often a reasonable gap in range in terms of how far an electric car can drive. So sometimes you see people have this problem, but they've chosen a car that can do, just over 100 miles, say on a charge. It's like, well, unfortunately, you've kind of chosen the wrong car. If you need to do that journey regularly, you want a car that can do 200 or 300 miles on a charge. So I just, that's the first thing to consider is consider what car you're getting. If you are making regular long journeys, get one that's got a decent range on it. Next up, is planning. Planning is as simple as that, and it doesn't have to take a lot of planning, but that is the easiest way to take the stress and worry out of a long journey in an electric car. And I'm talking 5 or 10 minutes the night before is all it really takes. There are different ways of doing this, but what I tend to do is have a look at my route that I'm going to take anyway on Google Maps, and then have a look roughly about where I think I'm going to need to stop. So generally, once you've got an electric car, you have a rough idea of how far it can go, and it might not even be dictated by that. It might be that actually you need a break after an hour or two, and the AA, for example, does recommend that you take a break every 2 hours just because of fatigue and whatnot. And if you're anything like me, after 2 or 3 hours in a car, I want to get out, I want to drink. Usually, actually, I want something to eat, let's be honest. I want something to eat.
You want McDonald's?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen a KFC or a McDonald's sign for the services, so I'm pulling over and then doing that.
It's good for concentration as well.
It's good, just have a break, stretch your legs.
Yeah.
And now, as you said, now I've got a baby. Often it's got to stop, change nappy, do a bit of feeding, get her out of her car seat. So it's often dictated by that. But I generally have a look and say, okay, about 2 hours into my journey, or say 120 miles into my journey, I'm going to be around here. And then I have a look there's a few apps you can use. Zap Map is very good, which gives you a map of where all the chargers are in the UK. And you can filter those so that it only shows you the actual fast ones. You can choose what speed. If you know what speed your car can accept, you can go all the way up to 350 kilowatts, or you can filter by 50, 150, whatever speed you want. So I then look, where those are on that journey, and more often than not, there'll be a couple of services within that sort of range. So you can have a look, and within those apps, they usually tell you how many chargers there are in that place, which is good because if there's a place that's only got 2 chargers, the chances are you're going to get there and they might already be in use. Yeah. If there's a place that's got 20, you've got a much more chance of getting there and charging straight away. The other thing to consider when you're choosing where to stop is what facilities are there. You don't really want to stop somewhere if it's just in a car park on an industrial estate and there's if you're going to be sat there for 45 minutes or something, you don't really want to be sat in the middle of nowhere. So generally, motorway services are a good place to stop because they often, not all of them, but a lot of them have decent charging facilities, and then you can go in and get yourself a drink, something to eat, coffee.
I ask, these motorway petrol stations or service stations, are they more expensive? Because with petrol, they are always more expensive.
Premium.
Yeah, more expensive.
And generally they are, I mean, more often than not, the price of charging is kind of dictated by the speed of the chargers as well. There's a few different elements to it, but generally the faster a charger, they'll tend to charge you a little bit more. But any sort of public charging that's anything above 50 kilowatts, which is the sort of lowest speed that you would consider rapid charging, anything above that, it's going to be much more expensive than charging at home. Put it that way.
Okay.
So that's a good point. That is something to bear in mind to budget into your trip. Is if I'm going to go there, how much money will I need for charging? And again, one of the useful things with lots of these apps, such as ZapMap, Motability also have one called Motability Go Charge, and you can get a card as well that you can use for that to help charge. You don't have to set up apps and that kind of thing. A lot of those apps will also tell you what the price per kilowatt hour is at the charging station. So if you do want to, you can check a few and see where the cheapest charging is, or if nothing else, it gives you an idea of how much you're going to be expecting to pay when you do charge there.
Do these apps? Because I know some in London, when I used to live in London, some of the apps would actually tell you for black cabs, basically the electric, and they would actually tell you whether they were in use or not.
Yes, they do.
Do they literally go to that? So
they will tell you. Yeah, they'll tell you how many are in use, and you can also see, whether someone has charged there recently. It will say, this was used 2 minutes ago. So if that's happened, you've got a good idea that they're working. Because obviously another problem, it's not. It's not. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom because it's really not that bad. But sometimes you will get somewhere and the charger might be out of use or out of order, and that is a real problem if you're expecting to be able to charge somewhere. Which is why going somewhere that has more chargers is always helpful. But what you can see on things such as ZapMap is people can leave comments. And they could say, I charged here yesterday, all worked as expected, fantastic. Whereas you might see someone else say, I tried charging here and it wouldn't accept my bank card, or be warned, such and such is an issue here. So that's also a good way to get an idea of what to expect when you get there in terms of whether the chargers have been working recently, whether there's anything to be aware of. So parking restrictions, for example, sometimes you'll get to one that will say, you can charge here, but your parking's limited to 45 minutes or something along those lines. So it just helps. If you've not been there before, it just helps give you an idea of these things in advance. Go, okay, maybe I won't charge there, I'll charge somewhere else. So it's just that planning, that sounds like a lot, but it's actually, once you've done it once or twice, it is really quite easy. Yeah, you just go, okay, I'm driving from there to there, I'll probably need to charge halfway. What's around there? There's Reading services and that's got 20 fast chargers, fantastic, I'll charge there. And it's basically that. Once you get used to it, it is quite easy. The first ones are obviously nerve-wracking. The other thing I'd advise as well, if you're a bit nervous about it, is, plan in... to stop before you need to. You don't want to be going, I'm aiming for this charging station, and when I get there, I'm going to have 2 miles of battery left. Because then if you get there and there's a problem, you're just adding unnecessary stress to your journey. So if you are a bit worried about it, stop earlier than you need to. And if there's an issue, you can always get to a charger further along. There are a lot of charge points. It's quite hard to get to somewhere where you think, I'm low on charge and there's no chargers nearby. There are a lot of them now.
I think you don't look out for them though. If you're not using them, I guess you're a bit oblivious to them. But once you get into that world, sounds like it's a bit like a private membership club. You will become more aware, you'll become more savvy and confident taking those journeys.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask as well, what about accessible charging? Because I know that's a big topic as well.
Yes, I mean, it's difficult because the initial lot of chargers that were rolled out, they obviously just didn't have accessibility in mind at all. So that is something to be aware of. Some of them, the screens are too high. Some of them have rubber curbing that's in the way if you're in a wheelchair and you can't actually get to the unit. The actual units themselves and the cables are quite thick and heavy. So that is something to bear in mind. But obviously you can, if you're thinking you're going to go on a journey like that, you can obviously just go to a local charger and just so you can get an idea of what it's like in terms of how heavy these things are. And because it is different to charging at home. Your home chargers are a bit lighter, a bit easier. You don't have the same accessibility issues. So I'd maybe advise just going to a fast charger that's near, or rapid charger, I should say, that's more local if you want to get a feel for what they're like and an idea of what problems you might encounter.
Because there are some apps, obviously, if you don't have an electric car, that you can, when you go to a service station, there's an app that will tell them the clerk to come out and assist you, essentially. But that it would be problematic, wouldn't it? I guess.
Yes, because a lot of these charging places, particularly at say service stations, they're just sort of in a car park, and there's no one there. They're just in a car park in the middle, and usually quite out of the way in the car park as well. So unfortunately, there's not necessarily anyone around to help you.
Just you and me. Oi, love. Oh yeah, you. Come over here, won't you, love?
Attention,
And you don't mind waiting an hour with me, do you? And then you can take it back out. Cheers.
So that is something to bear in mind. But I mean, it is definitely something that's being worked on. There's there are manufacturers who are working on clever solutions. I'm not sure how realistic they are, but you can see there's lots of prototypes where there's robotic arms that plug in themselves, and there's this sort of thing. And more practically, Motability themselves have released a standard that the industry should try to abide by in order to make chargers more accessible for everyone. And that involves things like the weight of the chargers, the height of them, the height of the screens, the actual parking bays themselves, because that is a big issue, is that a lot of the time the parking bays are just regular sized bays, which is really unhelpful. Or often I've been to quite a few where they have bigger bays, but it's not obviously marked that they're, there's a reason they're bigger, and it's because they're accessible parking. And so people just park in and just thinking, oh, it's a nice big bay, I'll park in that. Because they're not clearly signposted. So it wasn't until recently, actually, there's a place near me where I sometimes charge, and there are free chargers. And one of them does actually have cross-hatching around the edge, and it suddenly occurred to me, I was like, oh, right, okay, you've got, like, that's but it's not marked in any way. And obviously I'm someone who's quite tuned into this, and I didn't clock straight away, and I think, well, Joe average isn't.
So what, are they just not using because obviously the universal wheelchair symbol for are they just
it's just marked up the same as the others. There's no and I don't know whether that was I can't imagine it's a conscious decision. I imagine it was just an oversight.
You think so?
Well, I'd hope so. Well, I don't know if I hope so,
and maybe I overthink it sometimes. I think, have they done it to be more inclusive in the sense of, not all disabilities are visible?
Oh, potentially.
You know what I mean?
Potentially,
well, then we need a memo. If you're going to do that,
tell us.
And let us know what your plan is.
The problem with that, though, is then the people parking it who don't need accessible parking.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so that is a bit of an issue.
But on the topic of accessible charging, if you are listening or watching and want more information, we spoke to Catherine Maris, didn't we?
We did.
Season 1, episode 5?
Yes.
I believe.
And she went into quite a bit of detail about the work they're doing.
That was a good convo, wasn't it? I learnt a lot.
Yes, I think we all did.
That's not even sarcasm. I actually learned a lot.
So you can go back and have a
look. Absolutely, and it's worth listening to because she does go into the sort of work that they're doing, and it is great work. Yes. So fingers crossed. There are more rolling out. There are. I went to a relatively new charging station the other day that had recently made, and there was the chargers were better anyway, but also there was 2 dedicated accessible charging bays that were much bigger than the other bays as well. So fingers crossed that's starting to sink in now. That's the way we're moving. So that's good. One other thing to consider when you are charging on the road, if you're using a rapid charger, to protect the battery, cars charge at their fastest between 10% and 80%. So if you kind of want to get on with it, once it gets to 80%, the car's going to start slowing down its rate of charge. So if you don't need to go up to 100%, you can be on your merry way, and that'll be the fastest way to go. But so that's something else to bear in mind. The last thing I'd say to bear in mind is if you're going somewhere, don't just think about how much charge you need to get there, because you don't want to arrive there and have, say, 20% battery left and then go, oh, okay, I've got to get home. Bear in mind, is there somewhere there to charge when you arrive? If not, maybe stop before somewhere where you can charge and then charge at that same place on the way back again, if that makes sense. So just keep in mind, you don't want to. It's not just about arriving there. You've actually got to arrive there and then have enough battery to get back or get to another charge point when you're there.
My math is just not very good.
But is it like a rule of thumb just to make sure, like with petrol, you make sure you don't go below a certain...
Yeah.
Is it the same with charging? You just don't want to go below a certain percentage?
I mean, I try... I mean, it's up to you, really. Yeah. And I think, well, I don't want to say this because it's probably, I don't want to wrong foot people, but I think they have a built-in safety as well. Okay. I think a lot of cars, but different manufacturers have different built-in safeties. Yeah. And I don't know, that could be anywhere from like 2 miles to 20 miles. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So don't risk that. Yeah. I personally try not to let it go below 10.
Yeah.
Because once it gets to 10%, I'm so, if you're in somewhere unfamiliar, it's all right if you're somewhere where but if you're in unfamiliar territory, you're like, okay, I've actually got to find somewhere. Yeah.
Insurance companies, are they, I'm not saying you might not know, Matt, but are they thinking about the worst case scenario and going, we'll come and collect you if you have run out of... is that now part of their package?
So it's it'd be your roadside assistance.
Okay, so, that's what rather than insurance, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So your roadside assistance companies, So generally now they are equipped to handle electric cars. So there's a couple of options, and it varies by provider, but some of them will have a dedicated generator that they can do just to give your car a bit of juice. You can then drive it to the nearest charge point. Others will have, so there's the slight complication with electric cars is towing them. They can't all be towed in the same way as regular cars because it can potentially cause damage to the drive motors. So they have to be towed in a certain way. But again, that's something they thought of now, and they have vans that can tow the car with all 4 wheels off the floor or whatever. So basically that's been thought of and it's covered. I've never had to use that personally. I've never come close to running out of battery, and I've driven a lot of electric cars.
You're so ahead of the game.
What? I'm far from... I'd like to think it was that, but in reality, I'm probably the most disorganised person in the world. So I think if I've not run out of battery, I think it's probably fairly doable for most
Hope
people.
for us all.
Exactly. I think there's hope for everyone. So other than that, so that's kind of it. And then obviously just the usual rules for long distance driving apply. So just do your usual checks on your car before you set off. Oh, fully charge your car before you leave as well. I mean, that's obvious, but fully charge your car before you leave. Just check your tyres are all fine. Check your lights are all working, that kind of thing. Check you got washer fluid. Just your basic car checks that you should do before any long journey, regardless of your car. The unexciting stuff. Bring snacks and drinks because, hey, it's a long trip. The last one is if you really do want to get the most mileage or most range out of your electric car, you can. There's a huge difference between driving at, say, 65 and driving at 75. If you're driving at 80, you're using so much more energy than driving at 70. No one should be driving at 80. We all know that. Boo, drive properly, people, obey the rules of the road. But a lot of people will drive at 80.
Unless you're in Germany and, out the window, doesn't
Autobahn, go for it. Driving at 80 uses a lot more energy than driving at 70. Something around 25%, it's a lot. So if you do want to eke out that battery, just, dial it back a bit, drive within the limits, and you'll find your car goes further.
I love the parallels between cars and power chairs because I always put there's like indoor slow, indoor moderate, outdoor fast, and of course, what does Samantha always go for? Come on, guys,
maximum speed all of the time.
And then I've done 2 minutes, and I'm like, why has it gone from 90 to 72? And I get really annoyed. I thought maybe if I lowered it down to outdoor moderate, but it just feels so slow. I can't get away from people fast enough. Then they say hiya, and then they want to talk, and then it's like, oh,
you love it.
Oh, I do. But yeah, it's so true. Yes, it dips down so fast.
It does.
As always, Car Chat with Matt has been delightful, insightful. What rhymes with that? Delightful, insightful.
Thank you, Matt. I don't know. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much. Pleasure as always.
And that's it for this episode of the Motability Lifestyle Pod. Thanks to our producer, Charlotte Mason at Insanity Studios, and her team, including Saffron Mirza and Abby Sandler, and our editorial assistant, Lucy Rhodes at Wonderly.
If you like this episode, click follow or subscribe. Tell all your friends, and please leave a review and rating if you're listening, or like and comment if you are watching. If you want to tell us what you thought, or if there's something you'd like to hear, come and say hello on Instagram at Motability_lifestyle_mag. And for some behind the scenes content, follow us on TikTok at MOT Lifestyle Mag. You can also watch the full video on YouTube with captions and BSL. You can find us on at Motability Lifestyle Magazine. And finally, if you want more information about the Motability scheme, go to motability.co.uk. Or if you want to learn more about Motability Foundation, visit motabilityfoundation.org.uk. And well, that's it. I have been Samantha Renke.
And I'm Sophie-Marie Odum.
See you all next time.
Bye.